Hello, sexy listeners. This is your horny host, Sasha Fierce, and you're listening to an episode of We're All Fucked, a podcast all about sex, dating, non-dating, and relationships with the hopes of improving sexual confidence and skills. Times are crazy nowadays. We should all know how to get fucked the right way. Welcome, all you sexy listeners. Thank you for joining me for the 10th episode of We're All Fucked podcast. Today's topic is an extension of last episode, part 2 of the male orgasm. So we will continue this discussion, and I brought back with me today, of course, my sexy male guest hosts, Dom, Joel, and Ray.
Hello.
Hello.
How are we doing today?
Lovely, quite lovely. We are indeed. So, last episode, we talked in depth about the male orgasm, the science behind it, masturbation stories and whatnot. So thank you guys again for joining me today to give your input on something that I can't speak about, which is males who, orgasm or lack thereof. Did want to kind of talk a little bit about different types of orgasms or not orgasms, or basically what happens when you're having sex, the options that can happen. So there are dry orgasms where you orgasm without ejaculation, and that could be as pleasurable as an orgasm. It's very rare, and it's not a health issue. If you're worried about it, you're completely fine. You just don't come when you orgasm. So that really only impacts anybody if they're trying to have a child, right? And they can't actually produce that sperm. But other than that, it's completely fine to have that happen. And I think last week we talked briefly about that. Joel, orgasming without ejaculating is essentially blue balls, right? I feel like we talked about that.
Yes. Having sex or masturbating without coming to the climax at all would be, exactly. I think, blue balls, yeah.
Without the climax. And then...
Or the orgasm, yeah.
For that, it's very painful for you guys, right? Like, have you all experienced the blue balls thing where you don't ejaculate, I guess?
Yeah, it's weird.
Climax, rather.
Yeah, I mean, it's only ever happened when, like, I know it's only happened, like, if somebody's masturbating too much. Right?
In your
experience, like, it's never yeah, like if it's like the 5th time of the day and it's like, oh, it's dry.
In my experience,
I completely understand.
Right? Like,
it's
okay.
The day and it's like, really, I don't have any more to give.
Yeah, so it's just like, okay. But
in my experience, it happens when you start shaking things up, you start masturbating, or you start getting serviced, or you're having sex, and something happens where you have to stop, basically, in the middle of it. Maybe they change their mind, they don't want to do it anymore. Maybe you've run out of time, you're running late for work, which I would be late to work. I would miss that drink. Or I don't know, it happened to me a couple times, parents would come home and we just have to like stop real quick and put it away.
I was going to say another person most likely would have somebody stop, so. Right.
So it's usually in that kind of situation that causes blue balls, which is why you get a lot of teenage boys saying like, what, you're going to stop now? What are my balls?
Right.
Stop now. Come on, man.
I know times we see in pop culture, I mean, not just pop culture, I'm sorry, TV and film, where, of course, there's situations where they're fucking and they're close, and they're really close, and they're like, oh, I'm close, and a phone rings, or the doorbell happens, or something, and it's like, no, don't stop, and the person's like, no, I gotta go, I gotta answer my phone, or I gotta answer that, and it's like,
exactly.
Oh, God,
exactly.
Right now, I'm gonna lose it, and they have to climax, they have to finish, because they know it's gonna, like, come on, just fucking finish. I'm with Joel. I will be late to work. You can fucking leave
20 minutes for that.
Right.
I know, all that work, all that build up to just and when I know, like, when I masturbate sometimes and I get this climax and I just either I'm tired or I'm dehydrated or I'm like, sometimes I'm half asleep when I'm masturbating. I just need it for bed.
To go to bed, yeah.
For me, the squirt queen has been like orgasm, and I'm like, oh, it's coming.
Poof.
Not
Awesome.
a fucking drop, and I'm just like, really, bro?
A cloud of smoke just comes out.
Like something like that, just like, poof. Or it's like, or I feel like I think
little-
I'm doing it, and then I look down at the towel, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, are you kidding me? So yeah, so it's possible to have an orgasm without ejaculation, and again, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just, I think it has a lot to do with the mind, and of course, like we just discussed, interruptions, so that can have something to do with it. Or Dom, who masturbates too much, where he just has nothing else to.
Nothing else to give today.
Amazing. And I mean, that's a good question too. Like, I know that when I get dehydrated, I come less, and I think most men are like that. Or the more they come, the less they come.
Yeah.
That's the same for everybody. So yeah, so it's actually called an orgasmic ejaculation, and that's the dry orgasm. The anorgasmic ejaculation is when you neither have an orgasm and you don't even come at all. So you're basically just fucking. And I think a lot of women experience this where they don't have an orgasm, they don't have the climax, they don't come. For men, it's a little, not more understandable or difficult, but it's less common to just have a bunch of sex and not climax or come. I don't know. Do you guys ever experience that?
It's pretty common for bottoms. Like bottoms in gay culture will just have sex and sometimes not orgasm. So, I mean, I know I've done it a couple times too, like where I just don't, like I enjoy the act itself, but like I just don't feel like, I don't know if it's the frequency or like, I just don't, dehydrated that day or I just don't feel like it. But yeah, I do that sometimes.
So even when you're a bottom and you're getting the pleasure in the prostate and you still just don't have that opportunity to orgasm and ejaculate, you think the person that's on top has a better chance of doing that because they're doing the penetration?
I don't even think that's really what it's about. I don't know, like to get into like the nitty gritty of it all, sometimes when you're bottoming it, the way I like to look at it is like my sexual energy is focused on a different area of my body.
There you go. That makes sense.
And so like I'm like receiving pleasure from one end and I'm not really worried about the other end so much. And so sometimes that kind of like falls to the wayside. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does make sense.
And
No, it
sometimes
does.
it is-
I never
it is
thought about
harder.
it that way.
Yeah, and then sometimes like I'm so focused on the back, and then sometimes it is harder to stay erect if you're also being penetrated. It depends. It does depend, like on how horny you are and the day and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes it will just it won't really serve a function if that makes any sense.
No, it does.
Yeah, if there's any GI stress, it ain't happening.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like if there's any like, oh god, I might have had, I just can't. I power to the bottoms.
Right, exactly. So like if you're in your own mind and you might be a little conscious or insecure about what's going on back there, then that could also like stop the process. Exactly. Yeah. So it just depends. It really does depend. And sometimes you're just not in the mood. Sometimes you don't like you want to do it, but you just don't feel like climaxing.
I agree. That makes more sense. I don't agree. I'm not gay, so obviously I'm not gay male. So
You're not. Wow, canceled.
but as a woman, like, do you ever just feel like having sex and not like reaching the climax, or you just always no? You're like, I can't relate.
I mean, to be honest, because I'm a squirter and I know that I make a mess, there are plenty of times where I have sex and I don't ejaculate on purpose. I may climax, or I might not let myself climax, knowing that if I do, I might have no control over this ejaculation. So if I'm in somebody's bed, especially, or, in a place where I know that I can't clean up the mess, I really, like you just said, I really try to be a little more cognizant of the other person's pleasure and not really focusing on myself and climaxing, because obviously as a female with a man, I'm always considered bottom, right? So I'm never penetrating unless I'm pegging, which I don't. I don't do that yet. I could get into that later, who knows? But I've never really pegged a guy to be like, oh, this is what the guy experiences. So for me, being penetrated by a man, there are times, where I do decide not to, get so, excited that it kind of takes away from the person who's penetrating. And I think that has a lot to do, not going back to the females, but it does have a lot to do with why females tend to be a little more submissive during sex, just like bottoms would be. And it's just like, hey, you're penetrating me, so you need to enjoy this. And almost that feeling of uncomfortable if you do get turned on by it, if you do get erect, or if you do climax while you're getting it, from somebody else. So that makes a lot of sense, Ray, and I'm glad that you pointed that out.
As a top, for this perspective, barring mental stress or emotional stress or anything that would keep you from having the orgasm or ejaculating that way.
Regardless of anything.
You know, I just, from my experience, you do this. Sorry, listeners can't see this, but you milk the cow fucking long enough, it's going to happen. You know, for me, if I'm mentally stressed out about something, then I need to get back into the mood. But I feel like I've never had a vagina, you know, but I feel like there's more stigma there where, you know, I've heard guys say they need like a map, you know, a map to find the clit, or, you know, like I need to know what the inside of everything looks like in order to find the spots in order to make a woman come. But literally, you fucking, if you shake the can long enough, it's gonna pop for a guy. I don't know. So I feel like that's why tops are in general more likely to come on a more consistent basis. Course, it's just easier to make it happen.
Obviously, yeah, sure. The biggest thing that will absolutely affect the orgasm is any mental block. Any mental block whatsoever. You can't focus on shit. It's like writer's block. It's like anything. It's like too much, or if you have too much going on in your brain, it's not the right time for this. I mean, I try to be as good, you know, with my mouth and my body to be like, they can't even fucking think about anything else but what I'm doing to them. But there are instances where you're exhausted, you're dehydrated, you're hungover, you're not in the mood, blah, blah, blah. You have stress, you know, something's going on in your life that you just cannot stop focusing on. And Joel is right. Enough, you know, if you give it enough time, you might climax and then you'll be depleted. But it's like, you know, sometimes it's just, you're just not in the mood. You just can't do it. So you can have sex, not climax, not ejaculate, and still be able to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping people aren't having sex and not enjoying it, and then finishing with somebody and making them feel like, you know, like they did something. That's the one thing that I almost
that's
like,
awful.
if you don't have an orgasm or ejaculate, can you even consider, you know, the pleasure? But you do. You can. But it has to be
to a certain extent, I would say, because I've been in situations where I've been masturbating or I've had sex and I have ejaculated, but none of the other side effects have happened. You know, I didn't feel the rush of endorphins, and I didn't, you know, my headache was still there, or, you know, I was still in a shitty mood.
There's just different ways to do it. You know, your mind and your body are always in different statuses, I guess. Where it's like, you know, you just, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I think that's fair. And I think a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves, especially if you ejaculate fast or you ejaculate and it's like a drip, or like, you know what I mean? And it's just like you said, it's like you feel like it's not even a climax. You just kind of come a little, because it's just that, you know, like you said, milk the cow enough that something comes out, but it might not be the best pleasurable thing. It might just be all your body can do in that time, and your mind, of course, because your mind controls your body. So if you're telling yourself you're all of these things, like I'm a woman who loves to give morning head, but there have been relationships that I was in where the guy was like completely like, don't even touch me, I'm so fucking tired, and I'm like, really, but I can completely understand why some people are like not even in the mood. I still try though. I still get it. So there's the orgasm without ejaculation. There's the non-orgasm, non-ejaculation. And then, of course, just like females, males can have multiple orgasms. Or, like we said last time about the refractory period, it's either you literally have multiple orgasms or you just have a really strong refractory period. Either way, I think that they're different, wherein you come and then you can come again, but having multiple orgasms doesn't necessarily mean that you're coming every time. Do you guys experience that?
No, I definitely agree. For me, I think I have multiple orgasms. I'm not 100% sure. My whole life, they were saying that men don't really have them. It's just for women. And now, like new research, they're saying we do. For me, it's like one big orgasm, and then like smaller waves. Like, you know, it comes in increments, but it's still part of that one. For me, the one climax.
Do you have the smaller increments versus the main climax? Is it all over the place, or does the main climax happen first and then you have multiple ones, or is it?
No, for me, it's like the main climax is initial, and then after that, there's like those waves that come.
Like that sensitivity, like that. So I remember when I spoke about the female orgasm, it was like, oh, is it really multiple orgasms, or is it an extension of the first one where you're just still sensitive and it's still going? So it's complicated, and you're right. It's like you don't know whether or not you have had multiple orgasms, because that's why I was asking. The initial climax is so huge. Are all of these other waves a continuation of that one, or
Right.
are they're separate things? I actually experienced that myself. I mean, the bodies are very similar. Like orgasms are very similar, male and female side, and this research is really interesting to find that out. For me, I think especially when I masturbate, I can like try to orgasm and come as much as possible in that one shot, and I might not be able to do that again, or I might just have kind of a big one and then have multiple ones where I ejaculate as well. So for you, you have a one big climax where you do ejaculate and then you keep having orgasms, or it differs?
Yeah, no, the first, all right, ejaculate, and then stuff still comes out, in waves. Like sometimes a couple, like it might just be like 10 seconds, but then like 10 seconds will go by and it's like, whoa, So
So you
that's
have a short refractory period and possibly multiple orgasms.
perhaps.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I think it also depends. It also depends because I do know like there are certain instances where the refractory period is a lot smaller. So like I've had it where the refractory period was within like a couple seconds. And then there's times where it's like I couldn't even imagine getting hard again without waiting for at least 30 minutes. So I think it
Yeah.
really just depends.
Do you think it depends on that initial climax, how strong it is?
Interesting. Never thought about that.
Especially
I
like
don't
Joel said
know.
in the last episode, a lot of the sexual pleasure has a lot to do with A, your mindset, and B, who you're with. So last
Right.
episode we talked a lot about masturbation. This time we're really thinking about being with people, and of course those mental blocks and those stressors and those different instances, and if the phone rings and if people are around you, and then you look at yourself and you're like, hey, like when I'm with a person and I have this orgasm initially, that is pretty much setting you up for the rest of your refractory period, orgasms, ejaculation for the remainder. If
Right.
you have enough time to keep going and experience.
Right.
Every instance is going to be different, but it's interesting to hear that you have one big climax or orgasm with ejaculation, and then you have differences in continuing that as long as you have the time, the mental ability, and all these different things. So it's something to really pay attention to, of course, as we all move forward sexually.
Now that I think about it, and I do have a question for you too. So when you're masturbating, have you ever had a situation where you're masturbating and then maybe something like happens in your mind, or maybe the video ends and you weren't done yet, and you're like, but you're still like in the manual process of it, and then you're like, oh no, like you can't stop because you were so close, but
Yeah.
your mind is not there, and so you kind of orgasm or you ejaculate, but it's not really as strong as possible.
A disappointing ejaculation.
Yeah, you're like, fuck.
Exactly. You're like,
I
oh
let
man,
my own self
fuck.
down.
Exactly. But then in those instances, do you guys find that you ejaculate a little bit less and then you're able to do it again faster later? Like, does your refractory period shorten when you have a situation like that because your mind wasn't there to give you a full orgasm? Or is it just because I noticed for me, it's that way.
I've never noticed. I've always just been, for better or for worse, if I'm horny, I'm going to find a place to masturbate. I don't know. I really don't ever really. I mean, if I'm at work, I'll wait till, I'm not going to do it at work, or if I'm in somebody's house.
Not in the bathroom?
But no.
Oh.
When I was a kid, I masturbated in church in the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that's the extent. What?
That's more gangster than I used to sing at a Catholic church because I was raised all fucked up. But I was a camper at a Catholic church, and I remember they brought in some guy from Venezuela or El Salvador, and he was learning how to be like an actual priest or something. But he was whatever. And I remember my mom was like, I think you're going to turn him away from being a priest. And I was like, I just remember being yo, if I just literally hook up with this dude in the fucking room back there, that would be insane if I did that. But I never did. But I thought about it. But Joel, you actually masturbating in the bathroom of a church, that's
I was a child. It's not something I would do now.
Something I would do now. I would love to go to a church and pretend I'm giving some confession and just fuck a dude in there.
Oh my god.
But no, right? I get what you're saying. Where when you described, because I watch a lot of porn, the porn ending, and you're like,
Yep.
Yeah.
I still have more.
Yes.
I post all the time.
That's relatable.
How long it takes to find a good porn versus how long it takes to actually arouse you and make you come. And sometimes I'm so late for work because I'm I need to find the good video, and sometimes videos, fuck you Pornhub, are like 8 minutes long, and I don't even have the opportunity to go ahead and finish the way I want to. But good point. Dom, I don't know if you had anything to say off of that. I know.
Oh, I was just gonna say I buffer that shit. I make my experience what fits in my schedule. I fucking forward, drag the little dot where I need to. I'll be like, great, bang. Okay, moving on. See you in an hour.
Dom is unfazed. He will get his nut.
I will get it.
He
Okay.
doesn't have time because this motherfucker masturbates as much as me 5 times a day.
Oh, Dom.
I water all day so I can masturbate comfortably.
Dom, I didn't know you was a freak.
Honey, we all we're all fucked podcast. Come on. I love you guys. But yeah,
I've definitely well, for me it's usually, once or twice before bed, and then once or twice when I wake up in the morning, depending on how long I want to stay in bed. But yeah, a lot of it depends on the first one. If it was less than satisfactory, I can push that appointment a little bit later.
Right.
I think Ray's onto something where it's like you have this orgasm and it's unsatisfactory. It's a disappointing orgasm. We have to find like a proper way to say, like,
I'm sure there's a word out there.
Orgasm.
Bung.
And like, I don't know about you guys, but like less stuff comes out too. Like sometimes when it's like that. So then I'm
sometimes
like, I can go again.
I find that actually, I find that is, I think, related to how hydrated you are. If you're dehydrated.
Oh, really?
I don't know. For me, that's for me, because I'm on this like whole journey of like trying to lose a little bit of weight because I've gained some pounds during quarantine and everything. So I'm drinking like
a gallon
amount of water. Yeah, like more than a gallon a day. Like I've got this huge water bottle.
No, don't overflow your organs with water. Please be careful. Don't do.
Oh, I won't hurt myself doing it, but more than I've ever drank in a consistent period of time.
Right.
Drinking a lot of water consistently, like you have been, a couple weeks.
Couple months, but like I'm not hurting myself. I appreciate your concern.
I was concerned for a second about you and your organs. Now I'm more concerned about your semen. Do you see
internal organs?
Do you see an increase in your semen when?
I do. I see.
Please don't drink too much water.
A dramatic increase.
There you go.
Yeah.
I 100,000% believe in that. Dehydration, it's fluids in your body. Hello.
Yeah.
As a squirter, I know that like in the morning it's a little more difficult. Like I always sleep with a bottle of water. If anybody has ever slept with me, like I usually put that shit under my pillow so that I like am able to drink it throughout the night. I drink a lot of water. I drink water and alcohol, and that's basically it, and tea.
Water and alcohol.
Good.
Water and alcohol. Like that's
honestly
all
good.
My body. So if I have a night where I love my red wine, I love my Malbec, but I love a good dry red, and dry reds are not good for squirters. So if I have too much wine the night before and I wake up and I try to masturbate, I may not come that much. Versus waking up, having my tea, my lemon ginger, and like I'm able to kind of hydrate myself in the morning, and then I do my 10:30 a.m. session, and then that way it's like and I'm okay. Definitely hydration is a big key, but the mental place you're at, and being with people. So guys, get into more about like your experiences with people. Obviously, like we all know, the person that you're with can really make you feel hornier, make the orgasm better. If you're both hydrated and you're both well rested and kind of sober, you know what I mean? Not that drunk, sloppy whiskey dick type of sex. Having orgasms as a male and speaking a lot about the refractory period and hydration and multiple orgasms and finishing. I think everybody has a really different experience. Yeah, Dom, go ahead. Tell me anything you want to tell me about your experiences with other people and sex, just in general.
Well, first, I think I could say that I need like a build up time. Like I can't just be like thrown into sex. You know what I mean? I can't just be like, oh yeah, like we're meeting up for the first time. Oh yeah, I'm gonna overperform for you. Like I am too in my head to like have that happen. So like I have only dated people that I've known. I've only had sex with people that I've known. I don't do the grinder thing. You know what I mean? So I have
Really?
had sex with people that I've had relationships with. So, you know, like it's just has always been that way. I haven't done like the random, you know, I can't do it.
I
It's
can't
just
do
weird.
random one night stand shit usually. Like
Yeah,
it
I can't.
has
I've
to be like
never been good at that.
established relationship, friendship. You meet somebody through somebody else. Most of the people I've been with have I met through other people, and it becomes a little more comfortable before you just like
Yeah.
ram bam, thank you, ma'am, sir. You know. So,
Yeah. So, you know, it's just I definitely need like time. Like I get very stressed if I'm like, okay, we're having okay, it's happening. You know what I mean? So definitely I'd say that. But like college was like a whole different thing because everyone was trying to be like, you know, everyone's in competition. And then you know, you had like, especially in a conservatory situation, it's like over sexualized all the time. So it's like, you know, it's just like nonstop in college. You know, just like Facebook or Snapchat was like just starting, you know what I mean? So it was like all easy access porn all the time, you know, just like, you know, these beautiful people, you know, in theater, you know,
and theater people
wanting
are
to do it,
whores.
you know.
Who's that?
Yeah, exactly.
Theater
It's just
people
like
are whores. We're all
already
theater
kind of
people.
like a
We're all
free kind of a thing, you know, a free spirit kind of a deal. But
That's what it is. It's the open
yeah.
mind. Yeah, I noticed
But
that too.
I would say in terms of like size, like there definitely has to be foreplay. Like there has to be like like the juices have to be flowing about somebody. You know what I mean? Like I have to feel it. Like okay, yeah, has to have. You know what I mean? We're doing right now, but I can't do. It has to be like a build up, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like there has to be like sexting before, you know, or like some just like establishing some sort of
Like
comfortability.
relation. Yeah, like some sort of
Yeah, or
relation
like
with the
something like
person.
that. Exactly.
It's almost like, and I don't want to say this because it's literally not. It's almost like you're taking a traditional old school approach, even though it's not old.
It's just shortened.
It's just
Yeah.
you literally are not trying to say, "Hey, you're hot. Yeah, you're hot too. Let's fuck in the hallway." Like you're like, "No,
Yeah.
I want to get to know you a little bit. I want to be able to."
Yeah, like even at clubs, guys, like I am never the one that's like making out or like sucking dick in the bathroom. Like I am always the one like, up there goes Charlie sucking dick in the bathroom again. You know what I mean? And like
Charlie.
I can't I if I go to the club with somebody and like
Fuck Charlie.
we're there for that, you know what I mean? Then yeah, we're obviously gonna make out and yeah, sure, we're probably gonna go down on each other in the club. But like I can't just be like, I can't. Maybe kissing, but I can't go any more than that. So for like to me to not like not get, you know, really reserved, but like I just not in my mental self can be like, I'm gonna fuck you tonight because I can. Like it's just weird. I
Because
don't know.
everybody has their own version of comfortability when it comes to intimacy. Like people really don't fucking understand that. Yeah, sex is sex, but that is the most intimate, most vulnerable place that you can be with yourself. We talked a lot about if you're not comfortable sexually with yourself, how do you expect to be that way with other people? But also, it is a very vulnerable place to be kissing somebody, having sex with somebody, being in their space. You want to have some type of comfortability. And if you're the type of person who could just do it with anybody, okay, more power to you. But then when it comes time for those intimate moments, will you be able to handle it? If somebody met you, an outstanding gentleman who's like, listen, like, I don't want to just fuck you in the bathroom right now at this club. Like, let's kiss a little. We'll exchange numbers. Let's go out on a date. Maybe we'll then. But I think it's really important to establish what makes you comfortable. But in college, it's like nobody cares about being comfortable. Like you said, it's a competition. It's like, okay, everyone basically lost their virginity before we got here.
Yeah.
So let's all just try to fucking have as much sex as possible. There's no judgment
Yeah.
in college.
Yeah.
But you still have to be careful and you still have to understand and respect other people and their limits, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna tell. So I was in Atlanta on tour, and I was underage at the time. I was 20, and so like the whole play would be like, okay, we would like see what the city was like and whatever. If I could get into these places, okay. So obviously I'm bald, and 19, 20, when I was on tour with all these people, I would just go to the bars with the older guys. So like I would just go with the old dudes, get in, and then all the youngins would come. But they wouldn't see me coming because I was coming in with all the daddies, right? So we go to the strip club and it's like full dick, just full dick. And of course, there's all the Atlanta porn stars that are in there. Okay, there's like they're like everywhere. They're coming, and then my friend. I'm not gonna use names just in case, but my friend came over. He's like, so he's 300 and he wants to go in the back right now with both of us. Hell no.
$300?
Yeah, like he was like a
Unbelievable.
porn star, so you know, to come home or whatever the deal was, we were gonna do this, and I was like, no,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But that,
Atlanta is
yeah,
like
that,
that.
Atlanta's
yeah, it was
fucking
just like,
wild.
okay, here we go.
It's wild.
It is insane. It was
Yeah.
insane. It was really insane. And obviously
We
there
should
was like
go on a trip
plenty
one
of,
day.
yeah, there was plenty of things flowing and yada, yada, yada. So like, it was like, okay, here we go. And I was like, hell no, I'm not, no. But,
And good for you, because in those instances, I mean, unfortunately, that's how a lot of people get sexually assaulted, is because they almost, you know, uncomfortably agree to something, right? And it's like you feel like you're in that place, like you almost
Yeah.
want to say yes, and it takes a very strong, special person to be like, I'm absolutely fucking not.
Yeah.
You know? Especially when you're in a place you've never been. You're like, oh
Yeah.
this is how it is, and you just
The
get
pressure of it all, and like,
and
you know,
yeah, but
when
that,
you're
that,
home-
like assaulted, essentially, right?
but
It's
that's what,
scary.
yeah, but that's what, I guess, you know, that's what makes me go like this, because I'm just like, okay, whatever. But then I'm not, by the end of this story, by that night, I'm fucking my roommate for the first time on tour. We finally have that, like, okay, we were both at the, you know what I mean? Something, that's what I mean about like the juices have to be flowing. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
the juices were flowing, and then all of a sudden, by the end of the night, this other situation happened, and I said yes. Someone who I share a space with. You know what I mean? So it's just like,
That person.
yeah, because I'm comfortable, and there was already like a situation, and it's safe and it's fine. But you know what I mean? That's still crazy, but it wasn't the first crazy situation that happened that night. You know what I mean?
And how was
That's
that
my story.
when you had that experience where
Yeah.
basically we're out having a good time, getting aroused, essentially saying no
Yeah.
to great people, and then coming home to somebody that you're comfortable with, having sex with them? Was the orgasm great? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was like the best. Like it was like comfortable. It was like towards the end of our time on the road. So it was, you know, it was like kind
It
of,
could have been the last time almost.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. So it was
Oh,
just like the
That's
last
romantic a
6,
little bit.
it was. And the last 6 weeks of it, I was so good the whole time. It's like, you're not gonna sleep with anybody on tour. You're not gonna sleep with anybody on tour. And then it was just, everyone just kind of went fucking crazy from like June till when we closed at the end of July. It was like a wild time. The most wild time of all times.
That must have been hard in college though, because people are hooking up constantly with people that they don't really know, or that they kind of know.
I had one of the worst times of like, really? I live on the same goddamn dorm floor as you. I'm a fucking psychic because I'm a Cancer, okay? And I know when you're bullshitting me, and I know what's happening. I'm not an idiot, okay? I can see where I can see you. So there, just like this one, just boys, you know, cheating on me every 3 weeks in college, just all the time.
Oh, it's like, does it?
Yeah.
And I was called lame in the beginning because I wasn't going to part. You know, I was like, the lame is very triggering to whatever. We're going off topic, but you know, just like, it's just so much. I feel like, you know, not pressure, but it's just like, okay, this is what especially gay culture is.
Pressure. It is.
Oh yeah.
You know, gay culture is very like that.
Any
Yeah,
sex
it is, Dom.
in any way is pressure, and especially gay sex, especially when you're coming from a place that's conservative and you're all of a sudden in a place that's not so conservative, but you know that you're around people who also came from a conservative area. So yeah, you can be
exactly
or whatever, and like everybody has their opinions. I think that college, you know, I never lived at college, but obviously like I did have college, and even if people don't go to college, you still experience that 18 to 25, you know, year range where you're expected to have lost your virginity by 18, right? And then you're really just getting into the nitty-gritty of having sex with all different types of people, or at least you try to. Not everybody does it. Like there are people who just don't do that and experiment and get used to these things. And it's unfair to be in a space where you feel a little bit of peer pressure. It's unfair to be in a space where you're formally conservative, you're trying not to be, and people are almost judging you for that. I think all of us collectively have our own conservative upbringings, and as you know, people who love sex and who could be freaky, there's that fine line between, am I going to let this peer pressure overcome the pressure I'm giving myself because of my upbringing? And then you're exposed to all of these people who act like they don't give a fuck, but they do.
Right.
So everybody has these different emotions about it all, but we're all trying to cover it up with some type of sexual confidence, especially when you're in college and everybody is trying to have the utmost sexual confidence, right?
Yeah, especially that. Yeah, I was 19. I was barely out of high school. I was like, all right, like I feel like every juncture in my life has been some sort of like sexual awakening, if that makes any sense.
It does.
You know
No,
what I
that makes
mean?
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Wait till you turn 30.
Yeah.
Sexual awakening, part 1. The true sexual awakening.
I
Is
feel
that true?
like especially like for somebody like me who's completely obsessed with sex, I really haven't divulged in all of the crazy things. Like I'm starting to. Like I really am starting to at least find people who are into all the things, like just like having all of these experiences. But I think that especially for young adults, it's like we don't even know where the fuck to begin. And even when it comes, like all of us have different types of sexual orientations. At the end of the day, we are
Right.
all like not straight, right? We're not just
Yeah.
that classic straight person. So
Right.
it makes it more interesting and more challenging and a little bit more, it gives us a little bit more of an insecurity when you're going out in the world trying to be so sexually confident, regardless of the upbringing you have, and having to experience that.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's my stories.
Completely 100% agree.
Did that feel
Yeah.
time?
Clap with you because that was great.
No,
I was just gonna say, like, the
Good
only
story.
thing I was gonna say was that it was interesting to listen to your story because I don't really have one, so I'm kind of gonna piggyback off of you and to say that for me sometimes it can be exciting to hook up with someone who is brand new. I think sometimes that is the intrigue of it all because you don't know who that person, you don't know how they, first of all, you don't know what they're working with. You don't know how they do what they do. You don't know how they kiss, how they smell, how they feel, like, the different tricks that you might learn with that person. And then also the initial intrigue of it all. Like, it's almost like that uncomfortable feeling that you feel when you meet with like this random person. You're like, oh, well, I don't want sexual with this person. Like that can also be a kink in a way because it's like,
right.
I don't know what's going to happen. So like you're with this person that you meet for the first time and like you guys both agree to do it or you get together like to be there in that moment, whether you meet them on Grindr or Jacked or Scruff or any of these other like apps that are kind of like more sex focused than relationship focused. And you get there and it's kind of like who's going to make the first move, and then that's kind of sexy, and then oh my god, like my hand is getting closer to their thigh, like is it now, like do I do it now, like oh they offered me a drink, and then you get a little fucked up and then you're like okay I'm just gonna go for it, or or like maybe your foot hits their foot and the next thing you know like you're sucking dick. It's just fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
Find that uncomfortable feeling that that feeling that you find uncomfortable, some people find that exhilarating and exciting. So it's just interesting how like different people have different perspectives on the same thing, on the same situation.
And it might not be every time. It might be that just as a fluke you go to a club and just have like this random experience. And
and I could be totally free.
Yeah, you might be somebody like Dom and myself also, where you kind of have to like slowly progress into that. There are moments where you might have that random thing and you're like, holy shit, that just took me for a fucking ride. I enjoyed that. I don't know if I could do that all the time, but that was fucking wild. But there is something exhilarating about being with somebody that you just don't know anything about sexually or personally, especially sexually, and it's the first time and you're like, is this okay? Is that okay? And sometimes it's like, I'm not asking your permission. I'm just going to do it and you can tell me if it's okay or not. So there's
it's like a gamble.
Yeah.
It's a gamble, and that's the high that you get, that endorphin high. You're just like, oh my god, is this all right? Like is this gonna ruin the whole thing? It didn't.
That's why like sometimes like I don't like nowadays I'm like, oh, I'm a squirter. And I know I talk about this a lot because it's just one of those things where it's like it makes a mess and some people just don't like it. But it's like,
you're so thoughtful for that.
Yeah, I try to talk to people ahead of time and I'm like, how do you feel about this? Because when I go to do it, I'm not trying to gross you out. But if you're really into it, then I will feel more comfortable doing it. So typically when I'm having sex with somebody, especially if I don't know how they would like that, or if I'm in a space where I know that it's not going to be a good space to do that, then I just won't, and I won't talk about it until after the fact. I can still have an orgasm, maybe not ejaculate, but the comfortability with that person has to be there. I have, I'm such a people person. I'm a people pleaser, and I'm very much like Dom, like emotional, and it's just like, yeah, I can have these like random acts. Like, of course I could be completely spontaneous and shit, but I prefer not to. I prefer to understand that person a little bit more and have that discussion before we get into it so that everything is more comfortable. But you don't always have that opportunity. But when you do, hopefully the other person is the same as you, where it's just like it's a free-for-all. Let's see how it goes. And I think that's especially like when you're a young adult. I mean, all of us are now in our late 20s ish, and and
Yep.
we're still like understanding what we need.
Y'all.
We're between 22 and
I'm really young, so I don't know what anyone else is talking about.
I'm a veteran, and I'm still like the freakiest person I know, and I still haven't fucking divulged in a lot of this shit. But yeah, good points, guys. Joel, do you have anything else to add on that?
Oh man. Well, speaking of theater majors being horsed, I think I wanted to go back to. It's actually you mentioned something really cool. Theater majors are.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hold up tight.
No,
It's
no, no.
not just theater majors are whores. I think that you said this, right? It's that when you're any type of artist, no, but they really are. But they really fucking are. Theater people are whores. But when you're any type of artist, you have more of an open mind to.
I agree to that.
Yes, absolutely.
Band geeks. That stereotype
An
is
open mind.
crazy.
An open mind. Yeah, because I think a lot of, well, specifically actors though, there's a built-in desire to be empathetic to anyone that you come into contact with. You want to know how they feel. You want to know what makes them tick. You want to get, to intimately know that person, which goes a long way in sexual intimacy as well. So, all right. So I went to a theater school in Middle America. Let's say, I'm not going to tell you the name of the school, but it was an all-women's private college in the Midwest.
Wait.
And yeah. I knew that was going to have some questions. So
do you know? Do you know what year they transitioned into co-ed? Because a lot of places do that. Like I went to a high school that was Catholic Irish, and transitioned. Or when
there's a story here.
It never did. Yeah. All right. So so what it was legally, they were an all-women's private college. The theory behind having guys come in was, first of all, the guys that they accepted into the program, there was only about 3 or 4 every freshman year. So at the most, when I was attending the school, only about 17 guys on the whole campus. And they were, divvied out into the theater acting program, the theater tech program, and the dance program. So there were male dancers. And the theory was like, it was irresponsible to train women in these areas, send them out into the real world, having no experience acting or dancing or whatever, with men. Because that's what's going to happen when they go out into the real world. They have to have that experience.
And
that's what they said. So I went, and obviously in a situation like that, nobody likes to generalize, but out of 17 guys, not 17 of them are heterosexual. So I was one of the guys that was identifying as heterosexual at the time. And so it was a weird situation because it was a very, feminist heavy school in general. So a lot of the people that attended the school did not like that, the guys were there in the first place. And their parents who were paying for them to go to this private college also didn't like that. But that didn't mean that they didn't get horny. I was, because of a lack of places to go to get it, I was sought out by people I didn't even know. People that they knew I existed. I didn't really know that they existed because I was one of 17 guys in a school of like 1,000 plus, and I had a whole array of different kinds of sex in that way. So
how do you not, bro?
There were several instances, obviously, where I was having sex with people I didn't know. That in and of itself is very exciting for a 19-year-old boy. It's exciting for anybody. A lot of, well, not anybody. I don't want to generalize, but and John was already talking about it's not for everybody. But for a 19-year-old boy who I'll call back to this. If you heard me in previous episodes, my father is a sex addict counselor, specifically geared toward anti-queer rights. You know what I mean? So he's very conservative Christian based, and he's not Westboro Baptist, all FAGs go to hell, but like he believes it's a sin. So in my growing up, I knew that I had a libido that would not have me be sexually pure past a certain point. In fact, I lost my virginity around 14. And so a lot of, I think I've been through therapy even to figure some of the stuff out. A lot of the sex that I was having at that time was almost like Dad, I know I'm not supposed to be having sex at all, but aren't you happy I'm not having sex with guys? Like, isn't that something like, so I was bang, bang, bangity bang everywhere in college, which it got me in trouble. It got me in, not like health trouble, but like
Yeah.
the relationships I would build with people, like, so I had a lot of fun with the mystery and the just the not knowingness of what's going on with someone that you just met, that you know nothing about, learning their bodies, learning what they like, figuring it out, and just not even knowing if you're going to see them ever again. On the other hand, being a theater major, I was forming a lot of personal relationships with these people. I got to a point where I met a girl. I fell madly in love with her, who had been sexually abused by her first boyfriend. I think when she was like 16, she lost her virginity to like some 24-year-old guy, and he took it from her rather than her giving it to him. So when we dated, I think for like 2 months before we had sex, because it was super important to me that she was having an experience that she needed to have when we got into that.
Yeah.
You understand? So the first time we had sex, it was slow, it was deliberate, it was a lot of, are you okay? It was a lot of, do I have permission to do this? And it was very sensitive, and it was very intimate. And that, I remember the first time she and I had sex was probably the greatest orgasm I've ever had in my life. Because
you were
how intimate.
It was very intimate and sensual, and when both sides are completely like consenting to everything, there's that comfort. It has to be comfortable. It has to be, like that makes, for sure. That's really important for you to make her feel comfortable, and vice versa, and you knowing that you're doing everything that you can to make her feel comfortable in that sexual experience, knowing what she comes from.
Right.
It's special, especially when you're understanding of that other person. And I think that's why Dom and I are very, more interested in, and maybe even Ray too, more interested in finding out that person's side where you want to make sure that they're comfortable and not. I think that that's completely appropriate, and I love how like we talked about the whole masturbation point of the male orgasm, and we're talking about the different sides of gay and straight and bisex or whatever when it comes to everything. But at the end of the day, it has a lot to do with being comfortable, being hydrated, having a good mental space, and making sure it's the right place at the right time. Not everything is just about getting off. It's really about the ultimate experience. And if you don't get off, but you still have a great experience, then that's still technically getting off. If you get off emotionally or mentally, you don't ejaculate, you don't have a full climax, then that's okay. Like, you're still experiencing some type of pleasure. And I think for males, especially how we talked about penetrating versus getting it or anything of that sort, everybody's different at any point in time. And at the end of the day, it's just literally you have to know yourself and understand yourself sexually to be able to share that with somebody else, because it is the most vulnerable you can be. And you may have the best orgasms when you're the most vulnerable, being with somebody who understands your vulnerability and they're respecting it and they're appreciating it and they're being sensitive to it. Like you just said, Joel, it makes for a more intimate, more exciting experience when everybody is just... So the ultimate theme of the entire orgasm experience with males, females, and in between is that you just have to feel good before it even starts. You have to feel comfortable before it starts. And the other person has to just be able to understand that you're comfortable as well.
And that it's also in your head. It's not always just about that physical, release or whatever. It's a lot more mental than a lot of people try to believe that it is.
And that's why a lot of people have issues with it, and they're blaming themselves, and they're making it seem like they can't perform sexually when it's really just get a fucking therapist. Just talk about your fucking problems, or do something else. But
yeah.
I don't want anybody to feel like they have some type of health issue or they're just not good at sex because they're not able to break away from that mental space and being able to physically be there, be present. You have to be present, and if you're not present, you're just not. And I think practice, and I think more people And after this episode, especially, I think all of us are going to go and be like, hey, let's pay attention more to when I have my big climax versus my multiple orgasms later. Let's look more into, hey, am I willing to have one night stands with this type of people or not? It's really an opportunity for everybody to look and evaluate all the different ways that they have orgasmed over time, and looking at themselves and saying, hey, traditionally or more times than not, I do it this way. Is that comfortable for me? What do I need to change that? Last time on my last episode, I posted this on my YouTube as well. I'm going to do it again. I do want to go over just the tip and what affects the ability to orgasm. So just the tip for most people is just, take your time with yourself. Be more intimate with yourself. Practice with yourself. Try to last as long as possible. Try to come as fast as possible. Be the most intimate with yourself as you've ever been, and that will extremely help you when you're going forth with somebody else. What affects your ability to orgasm? Like we always say, lifestyle factors, your mental health, any medical conditions, literally medical conditions. Like I'm talking about people who may not have medical issues or health issues, but then there are people who do. If you think you do, seek a doctor. And if that doctor says you're perfectly fine, then go back to practicing all that shit. You can look up all of this information on my YouTube channel. I will post that in the details. And I do appreciate all three of you guys sharing your stories and sharing your experiences and your evaluations of yourself. It's a very intimate, vulnerable topic to have. And I really do appreciate that you guys were very honest and for our listeners, so that they know that.
Hey.
Sure. One more thing I wanted to add, having an orgasm, it's just like any other quote unquote feel-good drug that you can think of, in terms of it's easy to get addicted to. It's easy to do it, not always in the right place, the right time. It's easy to go into it irresponsibly. So going from the beginning, something that you just said, it's imperative, just like any other drug, if you want to experiment with it, it's imperative to be in the right mindset. It's imperative to start feeling good physically and emotionally, mentally. Because if you get into it, it's an overwhelming feeling a lot of times that can send you in the complete wrong direction if you're not starting off on the right foot.
1,000%. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Because at the end of the day, sexual confidence has a lot to do with those the emotional and mental factors of it all. And I don't want anybody to feel like they can't perform sexually within themselves or with other people because they think something's wrong with them. Figure out what it is, really take a look at you. Make sure that you're in a great place before you get into this all, and it will make a difference. Pay attention, be mindful of yourself and other people. Make sure that you're not allowing anybody to take anything from you. Please make sure that you're not allowing any peer pressure or any other type of pressure to take something away from you. You have to be confident and comfortable within yourself. Don't ever let anybody make you feel otherwise. So this is all about you. Don't ever feel like it's all about the other person unless you have discussed that is how it's going to be, obviously. So thanks again. That's a great point, Joel. I really appreciate it again. Does anybody else have anything to add before we wrap up?
No, you guys pretty much hit it on the head. Thanks for having me.
And I really appreciate your honesty. I really love that you guys came back for a second time. You're my favorites. You're my male guest host so far, and I think we will have a lot more to talk about in the upcoming episodes. I can't wait to have all of you back. And yeah, so thank you so much, Dom, Ray, Joel.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Enjoy.
Please always remember that we are all very lucky to live in a time and place where we get to have sex with who and how we want, and that not everybody is afforded that right. Next week, I will be sharing virginity stories, so I encourage all of you to please submit your virginity stories to me via email and Instagram, or however you want to reach out to me. It has been an absolute pleasure getting fucked with all of you. Stay sexual. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Follow me on Instagram at We're All Fucked Podcast, or you can email me at PodcastBySasha@gmail.com. Listen on Spotify, Pandora, iHeart Radio, and YouTube. A big thanks to our sexy listeners and our guest hosts for today. We're All Fucked Podcast.